Working the night shift teaches you one thing very quickly. Silence isn't always safe. When the doors are locked and a single car sits outside, that's when the real horror begins. I used to be a night nurse at Mercy General Hospital in Portland, Oregon. 12-hour shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 nights a week. I was 26 when I started, fresh out of nursing school, idealistic, ready to help people. I actually loved working nights. I know that sounds strange, but I did. I loved the quiet, the stillness, the way the hospital felt different after visiting hours ended, calm, almost peaceful, like the whole building was holding its breath. Until room 412 changed everything. Let me explain. Mercy General is an old hospital. Built in the 50s, expanded in the 80s, outdated by the time I started working there. The 4th floor was the medical surgical unit, post-op patients, chronic illness, end-of-life care. It wasn't glamorous, but it was manageable. Most nights, my patients were stable, sleeping, quiet. Room 412 was at the end of the east wing, last door on the left, right before the stairwell. It was a single occupancy room, which meant it was usually reserved for patients who needed privacy or isolation. But for the 2 weeks leading up to what happened, it had been empty. Scheduled for deep cleaning after a patient, an elderly woman named Margaret Finch had died there. She'd been on hospice, liver failure. She'd been declining for days, and one night, around 3 in the morning, she passed. Peaceful, the day shift nurse told me. No pain. Just slipped away. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Started small. Little things I could explain away. The call button would light up at the nurse's station, the one connected to room 412. I'd glance at the monitor, see the room number flashing, and my stomach would sink a little, because I knew the room was empty. No patient, no bed, just an empty space waiting to be cleaned and reassigned. The first time it happened, I figured it was an electrical short. Old hospital, old wiring. It made sense. I walked down to the room, pushed open the door, and looked inside. Dark, cold, empty. I reset the call button from the wall panel and went back to the nurse's station. But it happened again the next night. And the night after that. Always at 3:17 a.m. I started keeping track. I know that sounds obsessive, but I couldn't help it. Every single night I worked, that call button would light up at exactly 3:17 in the morning. I checked the room. Nothing. Reset the system. Go back to my rounds. I mentioned it to my supervisor, a woman named Carol who'd been working at Mercy for 20 years. She brushed it off, said it was probably a loose wire in the call system, that maintenance would get to it eventually. She told me not to worry about it. But I did worry, because it wasn't just the call button. The room felt wrong. Every time I walked past it, even during the day, even with the lights on, I felt it. A heaviness, a coldness that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. And that smell. God, that smell. Antiseptic mixed with something sour, something rotten, like old flowers left too long in stagnant water. I told myself I was being paranoid, superstitious. I'm not the kind of person who believes in ghosts or hauntings or any of that. I'm a nurse. I deal in science, medicine, facts. People die in hospitals all the time. It doesn't mean their rooms are haunted. I told myself that over and over. I didn't believe it. Then came the night I'd had enough. It was a Thursday, late November, cold and raining outside, the kind of rain that turns everything gray and heavy. The floor was quiet. Most of my patients were asleep. I was catching up on charting when the call button lit up. Room 412, 3:17 a.m. I stared at the monitor. My hands stopped typing. My jaw clenched. I was tired, frustrated, done with whatever faulty wiring or cosmic joke was causing this. I stood up, grabbed my penlight, and marched down that hallway. My sneakers squeaked on the linoleum. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and flickered. I could hear my own breathing, sharp and annoyed, echoing off the walls. I reached the door, took a breath, and pushed it open. The cold hit me first. Not just cool, not just air conditioning, freezing. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones that makes your teeth ache. My breath fogged in front of me, a thin white cloud hanging in the air. I stepped inside, my penlight cutting through the darkness. The room was supposed to be empty, stripped, the bed frame removed, the mattress gone, just bare walls and a nightstand and that antiseptic smell clinging to everything. But the bed was there. I froze. My heart skipped. The bed was back. A full hospital bed, sheets pulled tight, pillow fluffed. And sitting upright in that bed, staring directly at me, was a woman. An old woman. Thin, frail, with white hair pulled back in a loose bun. She was wearing a hospital gown, the same faded blue ones we used at Mercy. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. Her skin was pale, almost gray, like old parchment. And she wasn't blinking. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. Maybe they'd reassigned the room. Maybe someone admitted a patient and forgot to tell me. Maybe I missed a page. Maybe... She tilted her head, slowly, unnaturally, like a bird studying something it didn't understand. And then she smiled. Not a kind smile, not a warm smile, a smile that stretched too wide, pulling at the corners of her mouth, revealing teeth that were too white, too perfect. And then she spoke. "You're late." Her voice was a whisper, dry and cracked, like dead leaves scraping across pavement. But I heard it, clear as anything. I stumbled backward, my shoulders slamming into the doorframe. My penlight slipped out of my hand and clattered to the floor, the beam spinning wildly across the walls. She didn't move, just sat there, smiling, staring. I turned and ran. I don't remember much after that. Just the sound of my own footsteps pounding down the hallway, my heart hammering in my chest, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I ran to the nurse's station, grabbed the phone, and called security. 2 guards came up within minutes, Mike and Dennis, guys I knew, guys I trusted. I told them what I saw. I could hear how crazy I sounded, but I didn't care. I needed them to see it, to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. We walked back to room 412 together. Mike pushed the door open, turned on the lights. The room was empty. No bed, no woman. Just bare walls, a nightstand, and that horrible smell. Antiseptic and rot and something else I couldn't name. Mike looked at me with concern. Dennis checked the room, the closet, the bathroom. Nothing. "You okay?" Mike asked quietly. I wasn't, but I nodded. They left. Told me to take a break, get some water, maybe go outside for a minute. I didn't. I finished my shift. Didn't go near that room again. The next morning, I requested a transfer to day shift. My supervisor didn't ask why. Maybe she knew. Maybe she'd heard stories before. I got the transfer. I still work at Mercy General, but I don't work nights anymore. And I don't go near the 4th floor if I can help it. But it didn't stop. I still hear that call button in my dreams. That soft, insistent chime that always meant someone needed help. And sometimes when I'm alone, in my apartment, in my car, walking home after a shift, I hear her voice, quiet, dry, close. "You're late." I looked into it after, did some digging, asked some of the older nurses. Turns out Margaret Finch, the woman who died in room 412, used to complain every single night. About everything. The food, the noise, the nurses not coming fast enough when she pressed the call button. She used to say it all the time, apparently. "You're late." I don't know what I saw that night. I don't know if it was her, or something else, or just my mind breaking under the weight of too many night shifts and too much death. But I know what I felt, and I know I'll never forget that smile. I don't work night shifts anymore, not after what I saw in that loading dock. I know how that sounds. I know people probably think I'm making it up, or that I saw a homeless guy or a bear, or that I was just tired and paranoid. But I know what I saw, and I know it wasn't human. Let me back up. This was 3 years ago, late October, when I was 24 and working overnight stock at a distribution warehouse just outside Duluth, Minnesota. The kind of massive, industrial place that sits off the highway, surrounded by nothing but woods and empty access roads. During the day, it was loud. Forklifts beeping, trucks backing in, radios crackling. But at night, dead quiet. Just the hum of refrigerators in the cold storage section and your own footsteps echoing off concrete floors that seemed to stretch forever. I'd been there about 6 months. The pay was good, better than anything else I could get with just a high school diploma. The work was boring, repetitive, mind-numbing. But it was safe. Or at least I thought it was. Most nights, there were 3 or 4 of us working the graveyard shift. We'd unload trucks, scan inventory, restock shelves. But that night, October 23rd, I remember the date clearly. I was alone. 2 guys called in sick, and my supervisor didn't bother finding replacements. He just told me to do what I could and lock up by 6. I didn't mind at first. I liked the solitude. I put in my earbuds, listened to podcasts, zone out. It made the time go faster. But after 2 a.m., something felt off. I was in the back of the warehouse, near the loading docks, unloading a pallet of canned goods. The dock doors were all closed except for one, the east dock, the one that faced the woods. It was supposed to stay shut at night, but someone must have left it cracked open earlier. I could feel the cold air seeping in, sharp and damp, cutting through my hoodie. That's when the motion sensor lights started acting up. They'd flicker on and off like something was moving just outside the range of the sensor. I looked up a few times, annoyed, figuring it was a raccoon or a deer wandering too close. Faulty wiring, I told myself. This place was old. Everything was breaking down. I went back to work, kept scanning boxes, kept stacking. But then I heard it. Breathing. Not my own. Not the wind. Breathing. Deep, wet, rattling breaths, like someone struggling to pull air through a collapsed lung. It was coming from just outside the loading dock entrance, from the darkness beyond the partially open door. I froze. My hands stopped moving. The scanner slipped out of my grip and clattered onto the concrete. The sound echoed through the empty warehouse, and for a moment, everything went silent. Even the breathing stopped. I should have run right then. I should have grabbed my keys, clocked out, and left. But I didn't. I stood there, staring at that door, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. Tired, stressed, lonely. Your mind plays tricks on you when you're alone in a place like that. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't. The smell hit me next. It rolled in through the open door like a wave, thick, rancid, choking, like roadkill left in the sun for days, mixed with something sour and metallic. I gagged, pulled my shirt over my nose, and took a step back. My eyes watered, my stomach turned, and then I heard the breathing again. Closer this time. My heart started pounding. My hands were shaking. I looked around for something, anything, to defend myself with. There was a flashlight hanging on the wall near the dock controls. I grabbed it, flicked it on, and the beam cut through the darkness like a knife. I should have left. I should have called someone. But instead, I stepped closer to the door. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to prove to myself that there was nothing there. Maybe I thought if I could see it, I could rationalize it. Explain it away. I was wrong. I aimed the flashlight through the gap in the door, into the darkness beyond. The beam swept over gravel, weeds, the edge of the tree line. Nothing, just shadows. But then the light caught something. A shape, crouched low, just outside the door, in the shadows where the light barely reached. First, I thought it was a person. Someone hunched over, maybe hurt, maybe sick. But the proportions were wrong. The limbs were too long, the body too thin, and the way it was positioned, knees bent backward, arms stretched out in front. It didn't look human. I took another step closer, my breath fogging in the cold air. The flashlight beam trembled in my hand. And then it moved. Not fast, not sudden, slow, deliberate. Its head turned toward me, and I saw its face. Pale, bone white, stretched tight over a skull that was too narrow, too angular. No hair, no eyebrows, just skin pulled over bone. And its eyes, God, its eyes were black. Not dark brown, not shadowed, black, empty, like looking into a void. And it smiled, not a human smile. Its mouth stretched too wide, pulling at the corners, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too many. It tilted its head, the way a dog does when it hears a strange sound, and I swear I heard a wet, clicking noise coming from its throat. That's when my body finally caught up to my brain. I ran. I didn't think. Didn't look back. I just dropped the flashlight and sprinted toward the front of the warehouse, my boots pounding against the concrete, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I could hear it behind me. Footsteps, fast and uneven, scraping and slapping against the floor like something dragging itself forward. I didn't stop. I slammed through the front door, fumbled with my keys, got into my car, and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key into the ignition. I kept looking in the rearview mirror, expecting to see it standing there, watching me. But there was nothing, just the empty parking lot and the dark outline of the warehouse. I drove home doing 80 the whole way. I didn't sleep that night, didn't even try. The next morning I called my supervisor and quit. Told him I had a family emergency. He didn't ask questions. I never went back, not even to pick up my last paycheck. A few weeks later, I heard from a guy who still worked there. He said the east loading dock door wouldn't stay closed anymore. It would latch, lock, everything, but every morning when the day shift came in, it was open again. Just a crack. Just enough to let the cold air in. They stopped using that dock after a while. Blocked it off with pallets. I still drive past that warehouse sometimes. I don't mean to. It's just on the route I take to visit my parents. And every time I pass it late at night, I look. The loading dock door is always open now. Always dark. And sometimes, not every time, but sometimes, I see something standing there. In the shadows. Just inside the doorway. Tall. Pale. Watching the road. Watching me. I don't work night shifts anymore. I don't go anywhere alone after dark. And I never, ever ignore that feeling in my gut. The one that tells you something's wrong. The one I ignored that night. Because I know now, some things aren't supposed to be seen. Some things live in the dark for a reason. And once they know you've seen them, they don't forget. And 2. I carry pepper spray now, everywhere I go. In my purse, in my car, clipped to my keychain. I never used to be like that. I used to think I was tough, that I could handle myself, that bad things happened to other people but not to me. I was wrong. This happened 2 years ago, when I was 23 and working the overnight shift at a truck stop off I-40 in eastern Tennessee. It was one of those big, brightly lit places that stays open 24 hours. Gas pumps out front, convenience store inside, greasy diner attached to the side. The kind of place that exists solely because of the highway, where nobody stays long and nobody asks questions. I worked the graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Solo. Just me, the fluorescent lights, and whoever wandered in off the road. Most nights, it was fine. Truckers stopping for coffee and cigarettes. Insomniacs buying energy drinks. The occasional lost traveler looking for directions. I didn't mind the solitude. The pay was decent and I needed the money. I was saving up to move out of my mom's house, trying to get my life together after dropping out of community college. It was lonely sometimes, sure, but it was safe, predictable, boring even, until that night. It was a Tuesday in late September. Warm outside, but not humid. Quiet. I'd only had a handful of customers all night. A trucker around midnight, a couple buying snacks around 12:30. After that, nothing. Just me and the hum of the refrigerators and the buzz of the lights overhead. I was restocking the candy aisle when I heard the door chime. I glanced up. A man walked in. Tall, maybe 6'2", 6'3". Thin but not frail. He was wearing a stained denim jacket, jeans that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks, and work boots caked in mud. His hair was long, greasy, hanging in dark strands around his face. He didn't look at me, just walked straight to the back of the store, toward the coffee station. I went back to stocking shelves, kept my head down, tried to look busy, but I could feel him watching me. I don't know how to explain it. You know that feeling you get when someone's staring at you? That prickle on the back of your neck? That instinct that tells you you're being observed? I had it. Bad. I glanced over my shoulder. He was standing by the coffee machine, not pouring coffee, not moving, just standing there, staring at me. I turned back around, my hands suddenly clumsy, fumbling with the candy bars. My heart started beating a little faster. I told myself I was overreacting. Told myself he was just a tired traveler zoning out, half asleep. But he didn't look tired. He looked focused. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there staring. I kept restocking, kept pretending I didn't notice, but my palms were sweating. My throat felt tight. That feeling in my gut, the one that tells you something is wrong, that you're in danger, was screaming at me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned around, forced a smile, and said, "Can I help you find something?" He didn't answer right away, just tilted his head slightly, like he was studying me. Then, slowly, his mouth stretched into a smile. Not a friendly smile, not a polite smile, a smile that made my stomach drop. He didn't say a word, just smiled, and then he turned and walked toward the door. I watched him leave, my breath catching in my throat. The door chimed as he stepped outside. I rushed over and locked it behind him, my hands shaking so bad I could barely turn the deadbolt. That should have been the end of it. I turned around, exhaling, trying to calm down. Told myself I was fine. He was gone. It was over. But when I looked up, he was standing outside the window, right there, inches from the glass, staring at me. I froze. My breath stopped. My entire body went cold. He wasn't moving, wasn't blinking, just standing there, his face pressed close to the window, his eyes locked on mine. I could see every detail, the dark circles under his eyes, the stubble on his jaw, the way his breath fogged the glass. And he was still smiling. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a display rack. My hands fumbled for my phone in my apron pocket. I couldn't look away from him, couldn't move fast enough. I called my manager first. My fingers were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. He answered on the third ring, groggy and annoyed. "There's a guy outside," I whispered, my voice cracking. "He's just standing there, staring at me." "What?" "He's outside the window. He won't leave." I locked the door, but he's just... "Call the cops," my manager said, suddenly awake. "Right now. I'm on my way." I hung up and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered, calm and professional, asking me questions I could barely process. Where was I? Was I in danger? Was the man armed? I didn't know. I didn't know anything except that he was still there, still staring, and I couldn't breathe. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line, told me officers were on their way, told me to stay calm. I wasn't calm. I was terrified. I backed into the corner behind the counter, as far from the window as I could get, and watched him. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, his face pressed against the glass, his eyes following me. Minutes felt like hours. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The fluorescent lights above me flickered. The refrigerators hummed, and he just stood there. Then, finally, I heard sirens. The second the red and blue lights lit up the parking lot, he moved. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped back from the window, still smiling, and walked into the darkness beyond the gas pumps. By the time the police pulled up, he was gone. 2 officers came inside. I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. I told them everything, the way he stood there, the way he stared, the way he smiled. They took notes, asked questions, checked the parking lot. And then one of them called me over to the door. "Ma'am, you need to see this." I walked over, my legs unsteady. The officer pointed to the window frame. Long, deep scratches ran along the metal edge, fresh and jagged, like someone had clawed at it with their fingernails. And on the door, just below the handle, carved into the paint with something sharp, was a single word: soon. I quit the next day. Didn't even go back for my last paycheck. My manager tried to convince me to stay, said they'd install better locks, better cameras. I didn't care. Couldn't go back there. Couldn't stand in that store, under those lights, knowing he'd been there, knowing he'd touched that door. The police never found him. No cameras caught his face clearly enough to identify him. No witnesses came forward. He was just gone. But I still think about him. All the time. I wonder if he went to another gas station, another truck stop, if he stood outside another window, staring at another girl working alone. I wonder if she locked the door fast enough. I carry pepper spray now, everywhere. I don't work alone anymore. I don't work nights. And I don't ignore that feeling in my gut. Not ever again. Because I know now some people don't need a reason. Some people just want to watch you be afraid. And sometimes when I'm driving at night, when I stop for gas or pull into a parking lot, I look around, check the windows, check the shadows, and I swear sometimes I see him, standing just far enough away that I can't be sure, watching, smiling, waiting, and 3. I don't work security anymore, not after what happened in that building. People ask me why I left such an easy job. Good pay, minimal work, benefits. I usually just say it wasn't for me, but that's not the truth. The truth is, I heard something I shouldn't have heard, saw something I shouldn't have seen, and I don't know if it was real or if I'm losing my mind. Let me explain. This was about 1.5 years ago. I was 25, living in a cramped studio apartment in downtown Seattle, barely making rent. I'd been bouncing between jobs since dropping out of college, retail, food service, warehouse work. Nothing stuck. Then a buddy of mine told me about an opening for a night security guard at an office building he used to work at. 12 floors, mostly tech companies and law firms. Quiet, easy, solo shift. I applied, got hired within a week. The job was exactly what I needed. I'd show up at 10 p.m., do a quick walkthrough of each floor, then sit in the security room in the basement and monitor the cameras until 6 a.m. That was it. I'd watch YouTube, scroll through my phone, maybe do another round or two if I got bored. Easy money. The building itself was nice, modern, clean, lots of glass and steel, high ceilings, that corporate minimalist vibe. During the day, it was full of people, busy, loud, alive. But at night, dead silent. Just the hum of the HVAC system and the occasional creak of the building settling. I liked the quiet, liked being alone. It gave me time to think, time to decompress, until the night I heard my voice. It was a Wednesday in March, cold outside, raining hard. The kind of rain that pounds against the windows and makes everything feel heavy and claustrophobic. I'd done my initial rounds, checked all the doors, made sure everything was locked up tight. Nothing unusual, just another quiet night. I settled into the security room around midnight. It was a small, windowless space in the basement, lined with monitors showing live feeds from cameras on every floor. 32 cameras total. Hallways, stairwells, lobbies, parking garage. I'd flip through them every so often, making sure nothing was out of place. I was watching a video on my phone when I heard it. A voice, coming from the monitors. My voice. I looked up, my heart skipping. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. I was talking, clear as day. I could hear myself laughing, saying something I couldn't quite make out, like I was having a conversation with someone. But I was sitting right here, alone. I muted my phone, listened closer. The voice was coming from one of the monitors, the 4th floor hallway camera. I switched to that feed, and there I was, walking down the hallway, talking, gesturing with my hands like I was telling a story, smiling. I froze. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. I looked down at myself, sitting in the chair, in the security room, in the basement. I looked back at the monitor. The timestamp in the corner said 2:03 a.m. Right now, live feed. But I wasn't on the 4th floor. I rewound the footage, watched it again. There I was, clear as anything, walking down the hallway, talking, laughing, wearing the same uniform I had on, same posture, same face. My throat tightened. My breath came faster. I told myself it was a glitch, a loop, old footage playing on the wrong feed. That had to be it. But I hadn't been on the 4th floor tonight. I'd done my rounds 2 hours ago, and I hadn't stopped to talk to anyone. There was no one in the building. I switched to the other 4th floor cameras. Nothing. Empty hallways. Dark offices. No one there. I switched back to the main hallway feed. The figure me was gone, but I could still hear the voice. Faint. Echoing. coming from somewhere deeper in the building. My voice, talking, laughing. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, my hands shaking. I didn't want to go upstairs. Every instinct told me to stay in the security room, lock the door, and wait until morning. But I had to know. I had to see. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. The ride felt like it took forever. My reflection stared back at me in the polished steel doors. Pale, wide-eyed, terrified. The doors opened with a soft chime. The hallway was dark, silent. The overhead lights were motion-activated, and they flickered on as I stepped out, casting long shadows across the tile floor. I called out, "Hello!" Nothing, just my own voice echoing back at me. I walked down the hallway, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The offices on either side were empty, locked, untouched. I checked each door. Nothing, but I could still hear it. My voice, faint, muffled, like it was coming from behind a wall or down a corridor I couldn't see. I followed the sound. It led me to the stairwell at the end of the hall. I pushed open the door. The stairwell was dark, lit only by dim emergency lights that cast everything in a sickly yellow glow. The sound was louder here, clearer. I was talking. I could hear myself saying something about a movie, laughing, the same laugh I'd heard on the monitor. But the voice was coming from below, from the 3rd floor. I stepped onto the landing, my flashlight pointed down. The voice stopped. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. And then I heard footsteps. Fast, deliberate, coming up the stairs. Not walking, running. My blood went cold. I spun around, my flashlight swinging wildly. The footsteps were getting closer, echoing off the concrete walls, pounding up the steps 2 at a time. I didn't wait to see who it was. I ran. I bolted back through the hallway, my boots pounding against the tile, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I could hear the footsteps behind me, fast and relentless, chasing me. I hit the elevator button, but the doors didn't open fast enough. I took the stairs, flew down them, nearly tripped. My flashlight bounced in my hand, the beam jerking across walls and railings. I burst into the lobby, sprinted to the security room, and slammed the door shut behind me. I locked it, braced a chair against the handle, stood there shaking, gasping for air. I listened. Silence. Nothing. I checked the monitors. Every feed. Every floor. Nothing. No one. Just empty hallways and dark offices. But my hands were still shaking. My heart was still pounding. I stayed in that room until dawn. Didn't move. Didn't sleep. Just sat there, staring at the monitors, waiting for something to appear. Nothing did. When the morning shift arrived at 6 a.m., I clocked out and left. Didn't say a word to anyone. I quit the next day. Sent an email. Didn't go back for my last check. I still don't know what I saw or heard. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone hacked the cameras. Maybe I was more tired than I thought and my mind played tricks on me. But I don't think so, because a few weeks later I ran into my buddy, the one who got me the job. I asked him why he really left. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "You heard it too, didn't you?" I didn't answer. Didn't have to. He nodded. 4th floor. Always the 4th floor. I don't work security anymore. I don't work nights. And I don't go near that building. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in my apartment, I hear it. Faint, muffled, like it's coming from another room. My voice, talking, laughing. And I wonder, if I went looking, would I find myself standing there, smiling, or something else wearing my face? I don't listen to my voicemails anymore. I can't. Not after what I heard in that basement. I know how insane that sounds. I know people think I made it up, that I had some kind of breakdown, that I let an old building and too many ghost stories get inside my head. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And I know I wasn't alone down there. Let me back up. This was 3 years ago when I was 28 and working night maintenance at the Whitmore Hotel in Savannah, Georgia. If you know anything about Savannah, you know it's full of history, old buildings, ghost tours, stories about hauntings and Civil War soldiers and restless spirits. The Whitmore was one of those places. Built in 1887, renovated a dozen times, but still holding onto that old-world charm. Creaky floors, high ceilings, long, narrow hallways that seemed to go on forever. I didn't believe in any of that stuff. Ghosts, hauntings, paranormal nonsense. I thought it was all just stories people told to scare tourists and sell tickets. I needed the job. The pay was decent, and night shifts meant I didn't have to deal with guests or management. Just me, a mop, a toolbox, and 8 hours of quiet. Most nights, it was fine. I'd fix leaky faucets, change light bulbs, check the boiler in the basement. Routine. Boring. Safe. Until the night my phone rang. It was a Tuesday in late August. Hot. Humid. The kind of night where the air feels thick and sticky, and even the AC can't quite cut through it. I'd been working there about 4 months. I knew the building well by then, which floors creaked, which doors stuck, which rooms guests complained about. I was on the 3rd floor, replacing a broken toilet handle, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Unknown number. No caller ID. I let it ring. I don't answer calls from numbers I don't know. Never have. Figured if it was important, they'd leave a voicemail. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. Voicemail. I finished the repair, washed my hands, and headed back downstairs to the maintenance office in the lobby. It was around 1 a.m. The hotel was quiet. Most guests were asleep. The front desk clerk was nodding off in his chair. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and hit play on the voicemail. What I heard made my blood go cold. It was my voice, screaming, not yelling, not shouting, screaming, raw, panicked, desperate. I could hear myself begging, sobbing, gasping for air. Help me, please. Someone help me. He's coming. He's coming. Please. Then static. Loud, crackling static that made me pull the phone away from my ear. Then silence. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. My hands were shaking. My mouth was dry. I played it again. Same thing. My voice. My exact voice. Screaming. Begging. I checked the timestamp. The voicemail had been left 12 minutes ago. At 12:51 a.m. And the location, my phone's caller ID app showed it, was from inside the building. The basement. I stared at the screen. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. A prank. Had to be a prank. Someone recorded my voice somehow. Played it back. Some sick joke. But I didn't recognize the number. And how would anyone get a recording of me screaming like that? I'd never screamed like that in my life. I stood up. My legs felt weak. My stomach was in knots. Every instinct told me not to go down there. To call someone. To leave. But what if someone was hurt? What if it was real? What if someone was in the basement in trouble and I ignored it? I grabbed my flashlight and my radio, took a breath, and headed for the basement. The basement of the Whitmore wasn't like the rest of the hotel. It was old, dark, unfinished. Concrete walls, exposed pipes, low ceilings. It smelled like mold and rust and something sour I could never quite place. The lights down there were dim, flickering bulbs that barely cut through the darkness. I hated going down there. Always had. I pushed open the heavy metal door at the bottom of the stairwell and stepped inside. The temperature dropped immediately. It was freezing. My breath fogged in front of me. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone down here?" Nothing. Just the hum of the boiler and the drip of water somewhere in the dark. I moved deeper into the basement, my flashlight beam sweeping across the walls. Shadows stretched and twisted in the corners. My footsteps echoed off the concrete. "Hello?" Still nothing. And then I saw it. My phone, sitting on the floor in the middle of the room. Screen cracked, face down, covered in something dark and wet. I froze. My heart stopped. That was my phone. The same case. The same crack on the corner from when I dropped it last month. But my phone was in my pocket. I reached down and pulled it out. Looked at it. Looked at the one on the floor. 2 phones. Identical. My hands were trembling. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. I knelt down and picked up the phone from the floor. It was cold. Sticky. The dark substance on it smelled metallic. Like rust. Like blood. I turned it over. The screen was still on, still recording. A voice memo. Active. Recording. I hit play, and I heard breathing. Heavy, wet, ragged breathing. Close. Too close. Right behind me. I didn't think. Didn't turn around. I just ran. I bolted for the stairs, my boots pounding against the concrete, my flashlight swinging wildly. I could hear it behind me. Footsteps. Fast. Scraping. Uneven. Getting closer. I slammed through the door, took the stairs 2 at a time, and burst into the lobby. The desk clerk looked up, startled. "You okay, man?" I didn't answer. I was gasping for air, my hands shaking, my heart hammering in my chest. I looked down at my hand. I was still holding the phone, the one from the basement. I turned it over. The screen was black now, dead. I tried to turn it on. Nothing. I went back to the basement the next morning with the day shift manager and a security guard. We searched every corner, every room, found nothing. No second phone, no blood, no footprints, nothing. The manager told me I probably just dropped my phone earlier and forgot, that I was tired, stressed, working too many nights. But I knew what I heard. I knew what I saw. I quit that night. Didn't even give 2 weeks. Just walked out. Never went back. Not even for my last paycheck. But it didn't stop. I still get voicemails. Not every night, but sometimes. Always at 3 a.m. Always from an unknown number. Always the same thing. My voice. Screaming. Begging. He's coming. I don't listen to them anymore. I delete them as soon as I see them. But I know they're there. And sometimes late at night when I'm lying in bed, I hear it. Faint. Muffled. Like it's coming from another room. Breathing. Heavy. Wet. Ragged. Right behind me. I don't turn around anymore. I just close my eyes and wait for morning. Because I know now whatever was in that basement isn't gone. Followed me. And one day, I'm afraid I'm going to hear that breathing again. And I won't be able to run. I don't work nights anymore. I can't. Not after what we found in that break room. People think I'm being dramatic when I tell them I quit a job over something I can't even explain. But they weren't there. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't see him smile. Let me explain. This was about 4 years ago, when I was 23 and working the night shift at a 24-hour diner in rural Oregon. Small place called Mabel's, right off Highway 20, about 30 miles outside of Bend. The kind of diner that survives on truckers, insomniacs, and the occasional lost traveler. During the day, it was busy enough. But at night, dead. Just me, my coworker Lisa, and miles of empty road in every direction. I'd been working there about a year. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and I didn't mind the quiet. Lisa and I had a good rhythm. She'd handle the front, I'd cover the kitchen. We'd talk, listen to music, pass the time. Felt safe. Routine. I was wrong. It was a Thursday in early November. Cold outside. Foggy. The kind of fog that rolls in thick and heavy, swallowing the road and everything around it. We'd only had a handful of customers all night. A trucker around midnight, a couple around 2. After that, nothing. Just us and the hum of the fluorescent lights and the smell of old coffee. Around 4 a.m., Lisa said she was going to grab her coat from the break room. We kept our stuff back there, coats, bags, phones. It was a small room off the kitchen, just big enough for a couch, a table, and a locker. We never locked it. No reason to. It was just us. She walked back there, pushed open the door, and stopped. I was wiping down the counter when I heard her gasp. Not loud, just a sharp intake of breath. I looked up. She was standing in the doorway, frozen, her face pale, her eyes wide. "What's wrong?" I asked. She didn't answer, just backed away from the door slowly, her hand over her mouth. "Lisa, what is it?" She looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. "There's someone in there." My stomach dropped. "What? There's someone in there?" She repeated, louder this time, her voice shaking. "Sleeping. On the couch." I put down the rag, walked over to her. "What are you talking about? There's no one." "I'm not kidding," she said, her eyes filling with tears. There's a man in there, just lying there. We didn't have anyone else working. The doors were locked. I checked them myself an hour ago. Front door, back door, both locked from the inside. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, a big one, the kind we used for cutting meat. My hands were shaking, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Stay here," I told her. I approached the break room door slowly. It was cracked open, just a sliver of darkness visible through the gap. I could hear Lisa breathing behind me, fast and shallow. I pushed the door open. The light from the kitchen spilled into the room, cutting through the darkness. And there he was, a man, curled up on the couch, lying on his side, facing the wall. He was wearing dirty clothes, a torn flannel shirt, stained jeans, muddy work boots that had left streaks of dirt on the cushions. His hair was long, greasy, tangled. I couldn't see his face. It was turned toward the wall, hidden in shadow. He wasn't moving, wasn't making a sound. I couldn't even hear him breathing. My heart was pounding. My grip tightened on the knife. "Hey!" I said, my voice louder than I intended. "You need to leave. Now." Nothing. He didn't move, didn't respond. I took a step closer. I said, "You need to leave. This is private property. You can't be in here." Still nothing. I looked back at Lisa. She was standing in the doorway, pale, trembling. I turned back to the man. My breath was coming faster now. My palms were sweating. "Hey!" I shouted. "I'm not kidding. Get up. Get out." And then, slowly, his head turned. Not his body, just his head. It rotated toward me, smooth and unnatural, like it was on a swivel, all the way around, a full 180 degrees, until he was looking at me. His eyes were black, not dark brown, not shadowed, black, completely black. No whites, no pupils, just empty, endless black. And he smiled, a wide, stretching smile that pulled at the corners of his mouth, revealing teeth that were too white, too perfect, too many. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. Lisa did it for me. She screamed, loud and sharp, and it snapped me out of my paralysis. I stumbled backward, dropping the knife, clattered to the floor. We both turned and ran. We didn't stop until we were in the kitchen, behind the counter, as far from that room as we could get. Lisa was sobbing, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. "Call the cops," I gasped. "Call them. Now." She dialed 911, her voice breaking as she tried to explain what was happening. I grabbed another knife, a smaller one, and held it in front of me. My eyes locked on the break room door. It was still open, dark, silent. The dispatcher told us to stay where we were, told us officers were on their way, told us not to approach the man. We didn't. We just stood there, shaking, waiting. Felt like hours, but it was probably only 10 minutes. When the police finally arrived, 2 officers, older guys, calm and professional, we told them everything. They went into the break room, flashlights drawn. And when they came back out, they looked confused. "There's no one in there," one of them said. "What?" I said. "No, he's in there, on the couch. We saw him." "There's no one in there," the officer repeated. "But you should see this." We followed them back to the break room. They turned on the overhead light. The couch was empty, but it was soaked, drenched. The cushions were dark, wet, dripping onto the floor. I could see it pooling beneath the couch, thick and viscous. And the smell, God, the smell, rotten, metallic, like rust and decay and something worse. The officers took samples, filed a report, asked us questions we couldn't answer. They searched the building, the parking lot, the woods behind the diner. Found nothing. No footprints. No signs of forced entry. Nothing. They told us it was probably a prank. Someone messing with us. But they didn't sound convinced. Lisa quit the next day. I tried to keep working, told myself I needed the money, that I couldn't let fear control me. But I couldn't do it. Every time I walked past that break room, I felt it. That cold, heavy feeling, like something was watching me. I quit a week later. I moved out of Oregon, got a new job, Tried to forget, but I can't. Because sometimes, late at night when I'm driving home, I look in my rearview mirror, and I see him, sitting in the back seat, curled up, head turned toward me, smiling. I blink and he's gone. But I know he was there, and I know one day I'm gonna look in that mirror, and he won't disappear. I don't work dispatch anymore. I can't. Not after that call. People think it's an easy job. Sit in an office, answer phones, send trucks out to help stranded drivers. And most of the time, they're right. It is easy, boring even. Coffee, small talk, the occasional drunk driver or dead battery. But that one call changed everything. This was 3 years ago when I was working the night shift for a tow company in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was 29, living alone in a one-bedroom apartment, trying to save money for something better. The job paid decent, and the overnight shift meant I got a pay bump and didn't have to deal with much traffic. Just me, a phone, a radio, and a lot of empty hours between midnight and 6. I'd been doing it for about 2 years. I knew the routine. Most calls were straightforward. Flat tire, dead battery, lockout. I take the information, dispatch a truck, move on to the next call. Simple, predictable, safe. Until that night. It was a Friday in early December. Cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and doesn't let go. Snow had been falling on and off all week, leaving the roads slick and the parking lots half empty. Most people were staying home. Smart. The office was quiet. Just me and the hum of the space heater in the corner. I'd had maybe 5 calls all night. Nothing unusual. I was scrolling through my phone, drinking my 3rd cup of coffee, when the phone rang. I picked it up. Rapids Towing. How can I help you? At first, I didn't hear anything. Just static. Breathing. Faint and shaky. Then a voice. A woman's voice. Quiet. Trembling. Please. I need help. I sat up straighter. Yes, ma'am. What's going on? My car won't start. Her voice was barely above a whisper, like she didn't want to be heard. I'm in the parking lot behind Woodland Mall. Please, someone's out here. My stomach tightened. Okay, stay calm. I'm gonna send someone to you right now. Can you tell me exactly where you are? Behind the mall, the back lot, near the loading docks. Please hurry. I will. Stay on the line with me. Okay? Don't hang up. I radioed the nearest truck, Charlie, one of our best drivers. He was about 10 minutes out. I told him to get there fast. Priority call. I stayed on the line. Ma'am, help is on the way. Are you inside your car? Yes. Her voice cracked. I locked the doors. But he's out here. Who's out there? I don't know. She was crying now. Soft, choked sobs. He just appeared. He's walking around my car. Slowly. Looking in the windows. My hands tightened around the phone. Can you see him? Can you describe him? I can't see his face. It's too dark. But he's tall. Wearing something dark. Coat, maybe. He keeps circling. He won't leave. I could hear her breathing. Fast. Panicked. And then I heard something else. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Crunching through snow. On her end of the line. He's getting closer. She whispered. Oh God. He's right outside my window. Stay calm. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Keep your doors locked. The truck is almost there. Please hurry. Please. I radioed Charlie again. How far out are you? 5 minutes, he said. Make it 3. I could hear her breathing getting faster. Hear the terror in every exhale. And then I heard it. Tap. Soft. Deliberate. Like knuckles rapping on glass. She gasped. He's knocking. He's knocking on my window. Don't open it. I said. Don't unlock the doors. Just stay. Another tap. Louder. Harder. He's not stopping. She whispered. He's just standing there. Smiling. My blood went cold. Smiling. I can see his teeth. In the dark. He's smiling. The tapping continued. Rhythmic. Patient. And then it stopped. Silence. Ma'am, I said. Are you still there? He's walking away. She whispered. He's He's going to the back of my car. I heard her breathing, heard the creak of her turning in her seat to look behind her. And then she screamed. It was loud, sharp, a sound of pure terror that made my stomach drop and my hands shake. Then the line went dead. Ma'am? Ma'am! I shouted into the phone. Nothing. Just silence. I called her back. It rang once, twice, went to voicemail. I radioed Charlie. Get there now. Something's wrong. I'm 2 minutes out, he said, his voice tense. Those 2 minutes felt like hours. I sat there, staring at the phone, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I called her again. Nothing. Finally, Charlie's voice crackled over the radio. I'm here. Parking lot's empty. What? There's no car. No woman. Nothing. That's impossible. She said she was there. Behind the mall. Near the loading docks. I'm telling you, there's nothing here. Just snow and empty pavement. I told him to search the area. Check every corner. Every shadow. He did. Spent 20 minutes driving around, shining his spotlight into every dark space. He found something. A phone. Shattered. Lying on the ground near the loading docks. The screen was cracked, the casing broken, like it had been thrown or dropped from a height. And beneath it, carved into the pavement with something sharp, were 4 words. She's mine now. Charlie took photos, called the police. They came out, searched the area, filed a report. They tried to trace the call. The number came back to a disconnected line. No name, no records, no way to track it. They checked the mall's security cameras. Nothing. No footage of a car. No footage of a woman. No footage of anyone. She was gone, like she'd never existed. But I know she did. I heard her. I heard her fear. I heard her scream. The police told me it was probably a prank. A sick joke. Someone using a spoofed number playing games. But I don't believe that, because I still get calls from that number. Not every night, but sometimes. Always late. Always after 2 a.m. I don't answer anymore. I can't. But I check the voicemails. And every time it's the same thing. Her voice. Whispering. He's still here. Sometimes I hear breathing. Heavy. Slow. Deliberate. Sometimes I hear footsteps. Crunching through snow that shouldn't be there. And sometimes I hear tapping. Soft. Rhythmic. Like knuckles on glass. I quit the job 6 months later. Moved to a different city. Changed my number. Tried to forget. But I can't. Because last week I got a call. Unknown number. I didn't answer. But I checked the voicemail. It was her. Whispering. He's coming for you now. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to stop it. But I know one thing. She wasn't lying. He's still out there. And he's not done. I don't work security anymore. Not after what I saw in that high school. People ask me why I left. Good pay. Easy job. Just sitting in a room watching cameras all night. What could be so bad about that? I don't tell them the truth. I don't think they'd believe me. But I know what I saw. And I know I wasn't alone in that building. This was about 18 months ago, when I was 31 and working night security at Ridgemont High School in central Pennsylvania. Small town. Quiet. The kind of place where nothing ever happens. The school had about 800 students, 2 floors, a gymnasium, and miles of empty hallways that all looked the same. I'd been working there for about 3 months. The job was simple. Show up at 10 p.m., lock the doors, do a few walkthroughs, and monitor the security cameras until 6 a.m. That was it. No students, no teachers, no maintenance staff, just me and the building. I liked the solitude, liked the quiet. I'd bring a book, watch some videos on my phone, do my rounds every couple of hours. Easy money, until I started seeing the janitor. It was a Tuesday in late October. Cold outside. The kind of cold that makes the old building creak and groan. I was sitting in the security office, a small room near the main entrance lined with monitors showing feeds from 30 different cameras throughout the school. I was flipping through the feeds around 2 a.m. when I saw him. A man, pushing a janitor's cart down the second-floor hallway. He was wearing a dark uniform, coveralls maybe, and he was mopping the floor. Slow, methodical, normal. Except we didn't have a night janitor. I sat up straighter, my eyes fixed on the monitor. I checked the schedule posted on the wall. No one was supposed to be in the building. Custodial staff worked during the day. Always had. I grabbed my radio. Hello? Is someone on the second floor? Static. No response. I tried again. This is security. If anyone's in the building, please respond. Nothing. I switched to another camera angle. The hallway was empty now, but the floor was wet. Fresh mop streaks glistened under the fluorescent lights. I told myself it was probably someone who forgot to log in. A janitor working late. Maybe they didn't hear the radio. I should have gone up there. Should have checked. But I didn't. I just made a note of it and went back to my rounds. The next night it happened again. Same time. 2 a.m. Same hallway. Same man pushing the cart, mopping the floors. I radioed again. No answer. This time I went upstairs. I climbed to the second floor, my flashlight cutting through the dim hallway. The lights were motion-activated, flickering on as I walked. The air smelled like cleaning solution, bleach and something floral. The floors were wet. I could see the streaks. Fresh, still damp. But no one was there. I checked every classroom, every bathroom, every closet. Empty. The janitor's cart was nowhere to be found. I went back to the security office and rewound the footage. There he was, clear as day, pushing the cart, mopping, walking down the hallway at exactly 2:03 a.m. But when I'd gone upstairs at 2:10, he was gone. This went on for weeks. Every night I worked, he'd appear on the monitors. Always at 2 a.m. Always the same hallway. Always mopping. Always alone. I started checking the employee records. No night janitors. No maintenance staff scheduled overnight. No one. I asked the principal. Asked the day janitors. No one knew what I was talking about. They thought I was seeing things. Tired. Stressed. Working too many nights. But I knew what I saw. And then one night everything changed. It was a Thursday in mid-November. Colder than usual. The building felt heavier somehow. Quieter. I was watching the monitors when he appeared. Same time. Same hallway. But this time he wasn't moving. He was standing still. In the middle of the hallway. Facing the camera. Staring directly at it. At me. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. He didn't blink. Didn't move. Just stood there, his face shadowed, his body rigid. And then, slowly, he started walking. Not down the hallway. Toward the camera. Toward the stairs. Toward me. I switched to the stairwell camera. He was there. Descending. One step at a time. Slow. Deliberate. My heart was pounding. My breath came faster. I switched to the first floor hallway. He was there. Walking toward the main office. Toward the security room. Toward me. I locked the door. Turned off the lights. Grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a metal flashlight. I sat in the dark, my back against the wall, watching the monitors. He stopped in the hallway just outside my door. I held my breath. On the monitor, I could see him, standing there, not moving, not looking at the camera, just standing. And then I saw it. His shadow, under the door, dark and long, stretching into the room. He was right outside. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't make a sound. I waited for him to knock, to try the handle, to do something, but he didn't. He just stood there. I watched the clock. Minutes ticked by. 10, 20, 30. An hour passed. He didn't move. I could see his shadow, could hear nothing but my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. And then, as the first light of dawn started creeping through the windows, the shadow disappeared. I waited another 10 minutes before I opened the door. The hallway was empty. No janitor. No cart. No wet floors. Nothing. I quit that morning. Walked into the principal's office and told him I was done. Didn't give a reason. Didn't explain. Just left. A few weeks later, I ran into the guy who replaced me. We'd met once during the handoff. He looked tired, pale. "You see him yet?" I asked. He stared at me, Didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Every night," he said quietly. "Always at 2 a.m. Does he come to the door?" He swallowed hard. "Not yet, but he's getting closer." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't want to know. I don't work nights anymore. I don't work in schools. And I don't ignore that feeling in my gut when something's wrong. Because I know now, some things don't leave just because you do. Some things wait. And some things, once they see you, don't stop watching. I still think about that shadow under the door. Wonder how long he stood there. Wonder what would have happened if I'd opened it. And I think about the new guard. Wonder if he's still there. Wonder how close the janitor's gotten by now. Wonder if he ever made it to the door.